everyone. Good evening and welcome to yet another Zensible webinar. Let's think about this for a moment. What if the way you process the world around you was completely different from everyone else's? What if the sounds were louder, the lights were brighter, and the social rules everyone seems to follow just doesn't make any sense to you? For neurodivergent individuals, this isn't just a what if, it's their everyday reality. And as therapists and educators and caregivers, it's our job to not just accommodate, but to truly understand and empower them. That's exactly what we are here for today. Welcome to this webinar on neurodiversity therapy. We are joined by two incredible speakers, Aparna Verma and Gayatri Shinde, co-founders of Manovriti, a specialized therapy center in Bellari, that's a place in Karnataka, that's dedicated to creating an inclusive, ethical space for neurodivergent individuals. Manovriti provides therapy for children and adults with diverse neurodevelopmental and psychological needs, offering personalized care tailored to each person's unique strengths and challenges. Aparna and Gayatri have worked in this field for many years and bring a wealth of experience in child therapy, sensory integration, speech therapy, and family counseling. Thank you for being here with us, Aparna and Gayatri.
Thank you so much for having us. It's nice to be here.
Same here.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Also, audience, we will start taking your questions from 6:15 onwards, but please keep the conversation alive in the chat window as we love a good engaged audience. With that, let's jump straight in. Aparna, you actually were in Bangalore, right? And you were doing therapy in Bangalore and you moved to Bellari. So what is the difference between the therapeutic settings in urban cities like Bangalore and tier 2 cities like Bellari? Do you feel any sort of difference in the way, the attitude, the cultural impact of neurodivergent individuals in these settings?
So there's a huge difference when it comes to metro city. It's not only Bangalore, you can take Mumbai, you can take Delhi. You know, the basic setup is so easy when you come to the metro cities. You know, if you want to do a basic setup for toys. So since I'm more oriented toward child therapy, so the basic setup like a table and chair, toys, some other reinforcements, it's very easy and it's very convenient. If I want something, if I'm falling shortage of anything over there, okay, I'm just 2 clicks away from Amazon, from Flipkart, and I'm getting those deliveries constantly. But when it comes to a tier 2 city, let me tell you honestly, if I want to do Amazon over here, it's gonna take like 10 to 15 days. It's so those are like just minimal logistic things. When it comes to therapy as well, here we tried searching for therapist. So our basic criteria was, okay, so since we are doing therapy, which is, much more oriented to Bellari district, we want people from Bellari. So here we faced a huge difficulty because there is no psychology subject in Bellari University. Can you believe that?
Wow.
We speak so much of mental health. There are so many movements going on. It is all over the internet, all over the news, even in the parliament as well. But imagine when it comes down to the ground root level, the grassroots level, where we are seeing Bellari district not having a psychology subject in a university. So that's the difficulty level we find it over here. And even when it comes to mental health, people take doctors seriously. When you introduce yourself as a psychologist over here, they will directly narrate it to you. Oh, are you a psychiatrist? Then we have to, explain them. Like there's a huge difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And yeah, so these are some of the major problems which we face when we are working in tier 2 cities. And right now our project is just in Bellari, but we are actually going to try for a lot of tier 2 cities in coming days. And since we got to know, okay, so these are the basic things which has to be done when it comes to the grassroots level. So yeah, that's what we are focusing more on.
That is really, really good. And it is sad to see that there are so many, counseling students who are here in urban cities. And I hear from them, it's so difficult to find clients. I wish there were more clients coming, but there is this whole wealth of situation that is happening in tier 2 cities, or need that is available in tier 2 cities and rural areas. And we should promote that more. So Gayatri, this question is for you. In tier 2 cities like Bellari or in rural areas, because of availability of therapists, like Aparna said, access to therapy remains a challenge. Can online therapy be a sustainable solution for this? And can people who are in urban cities take online therapy just on a need-by basis? And if they do that, what adaptations are needed to make it effective for neurodivergent adults and children, do you think?
Okay, I think when it comes to, you know, access to teletherapy, I think if we are just dealing with kids on the autism spectrum, then, then teletherapy might not be the answer, because no matter how much you explain to the parents, like for example, we practice ABA. So ABA is applied behavioral analysis, right? So in that kind of therapy, no matter how much you train the parent to take care of the child, it becomes very exhausting for the child and the parent. And then the difference between a therapist and a parent, it doesn't stay, or a therapeutic space versus a comfortable home environment, it doesn't stay. So we believe that there should be a little bit of difference between a therapy space versus a place which you call home, which is very, warm, comforting, welcoming. It should, you should feel like going to sleep, and you should not think about, what can I do next with my child. So if it just comes to child therapy, child psychology, and parental training, in that case, I think it's better if we go for like a one-on-one therapy with a psychologist. But if it comes to, just parental counseling, or just addressing parental issues and guiding them with, a few questions, like how do they take care of sensory needs? How do they, help the child in, studying for exams? In those cases, yes, teletherapy is a great way to reach out to them. But however, if you're working with kids on the autism spectrum, you need to work on the, on the ground to, kind of see that change.
Yeah, it is difficult to have an autistic child sit in front of a screen for that long and engage with the therapist. It is really difficult. It is a struggle, and I hope a lot more people who see this webinar and hear about this decide to move and work out of these tier 2 and rural areas. Thank you, Gayatri. Aparna, talking about autistic children with sensory sensitivities, how in India everything is loud, everything is chaotic. There is people everywhere. We have crowded places everywhere, loud celebrations. What are some practical tips will you give for these autistic children or parents and educators to help children manage the sensory overload?
Okay, so it's not only a problem of India. It's most of the third world countries you can think about. They have loud festivals, they have crowded places, a very, overcrowding places. So when it comes to, when I'm talking about the therapeutic tips, you can actually plan. So where you can, speak to the parents, they can know the trigger spot of the kids. These can be like a proactive tips where, as simple as wearing a noise cancelling headphone can work if the kid is very sensitive to the auditory noises. And even when there are like too much bright lights, they can use sunglasses to block those bright lights, especially in Diwalis, they can do that. And even they can find quieter places too. So when they feel that, okay, the kid is getting very much anxious, overwhelming to that particular place, yeah, they can find that safe zone. And it's very important for parents as well to, validate the kid's feeling. It's okay, you're feeling in that way, it's fine. Let's do something about it. So those safe space, safe, where your feelings are getting validated, you are getting a lot of, extra, you can say, the aids to get over those type of situations, those can work. And apart from that, the visual schedules can work for them. So you are just, setting up, okay, so this is the festival which is going to come. There are going to be a lot of lights, there are going to be a lot of sound. So you are basically, preparing for that particular festival. So these are the most basic techniques which you can, work on kids with uh, autism, or we can say even on the neurodivergent scale.
That is some very, very practical tips, Aparna. It is really difficult, especially with loud festivals like Diwali. It is quite difficult, at least with adults. They have kind of, whether they have gone to therapy or not, they have kind of adapted by the time they reach the adult level. But for kids, it's really, really difficult. So thank you for those
Veda,
tips.
I think I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think one very good example right now that has been trending on Instagram and everywhere is the sensory room in at Bangalore airport. I think, yeah, so I think it's like one very huge step that we have taken, and considering it's the first, if I'm not wrong, it's the first in all over India to do that. So that is a very big step towards inclusivity, is what we feel.
Absolutely right. When I saw it and when I read about it, it came just before the neurodiversity celebration week, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. And all the sensory things that they had over there, it was very good. That was a good step in the right direction, I would say. Gayatri, moving away from autism a little bit, one of the other common consideration for, especially in adults, is ADHD. Adult ADHD is often considered as lack of discipline rather than a neuro diversity condition, right? How can therapists shift this mindset and support late diagnosed or undiagnosed ADHD adults? Because by that time they have some coping mechanism, but what kind of additional support can be given to them?
I think one of the main things as a therapist is to just be accepting of whatever coping mechanisms they have come up with, because it is something that is working for them. You cannot, so when you work with a child, you teach that child from day one in therapy ki, okay, fine, if you're feeling, if there are loud sounds, then you're supposed to ask for headphones. How do they ask for headphones? And then you have to wear them. But when it comes to adults, it becomes a little interesting, because when they already have so many ideas that they bring in therapy space, then all you have to then all you're left to do is to just tweak it and make it more comfortable journey for them. I think late diagnosis is one of the things that is happening a lot lately, because a lot of people are again getting aware of what can be ADHD or what can be autism. Even with autism, we are seeing a lot of late diagnosis cases. So usually, since it's late diagnosis, usually it is high functioning autism or high functioning ADHD. Of course there are options such as medications and other things, but apart from that, even when it comes to adults and workspaces, we can work towards making the workspaces a little bit more comfortable for the people with ADHD or on the autism spectrum, and making not only that, like you can actually involve a lot of things in the workplace as well. You can include a calming room, a sensory room. You can give them flexible working hours. You can keep the target same. The companies can keep the target same. However, just they can give them flexible working hours, more work from home options. So yeah, I think these are a few things that that has been happening with adults.
Yeah, so that is a very good point that you mentioned regarding the employment space, right? We are so happy that in airport we have this sensory room, but some of these high functioning adults, when they go for employment, there is still not a lot of awareness about inclusive policies at workplaces. What can we as therapists help organizations understand about neurodivergent friendly workspaces? And if the organizations are still not open to that, how can the individual themselves try and create a niche for themselves and make sure that they are still able to function there, do you think?
So I think, first of all, when it comes to being a therapist, I think again, I work a lot with educating and psychoeducating and sensitizing the people. I think we can conduct workshops, and first thing that we need to make the workplace and companies aware that, I think this is one thing that we are struggling a lot with, which is that autism or ADHD is not wrong. It's not wrong or faulty wiring. It's just different wiring of the brain. So that does not mean that they will not be able to perform well, or they will not be able to act on they will not be able to deliver the projects or things like that. It just means that they would need different kind of training or different kind of targets to meet that. That doesn't mean they will not be able to perform at all. So I think when it comes to this, we have to start with creating like a proper training programs for organizations to create like an inclusive and supportive work environment for neurodivergent employees. Apart from that, we can work with HR departments, to create neurodiversity friendly policies. Like I mentioned earlier, flexible working hours, sensory friendly office spaces, hiring practices. When it comes to hiring as well, if I have had a few clients and my friends who have ADHD and they are on the autism spectrum, and they are worried to disclose that they have this that they are on the spectrum during the interview, because they're worried that they will not get same or equal opportunities. So that is something that will come with hyper sensitive, just sensitization. At the same time, we need to work on, like, when it comes to career counselors, we need to work on facilitating connections between neurodivergents who are seeking jobs in the companies, and then the people who can employ them. So we need to bridge the gap, because I have seen that a lot of the times there, opportunities have been taken away, and they are, a lot of the clients and my friends are stuck working in a specific job just because they are not able to work there. Or if they have heard about some 3 to 5 companies that are neurodivergent friendly, they end up just going there. But what happens if their interests are not aligned there? So that is something that I think we need to work on.
And can
Yeah,
I
I think.
add one point in this? So basically, when we talk about neurodivergence, that is actually coming in a category of hidden disability.
Mhm.
So when we talk about disability in a corporate sector, there are a lot of emotions when it comes to those things. Like, okay, people are being sympathetic, empathy, a lot of empathy towards you. They are trying to help you out. But when it comes on the same thing, when it comes to, uh, where people are, just talking about hidden disabilities such as autism, ADHD, people are making fun of it. It's like, okay, it's just there in your head. Just because you are, allowing something in a very, you might have seen on social media. So this is like, when we speak about a coin having two faces, the same thing occurs over here. So there are a lot of miscommunications which are spreading throughout the internet. When we are speaking about ADHD, okay, so a person who is just having a brain fog, who is just jumbling about, one work to the other work, so that person is, tagged as ADHD. When, if you are having a stimming, it can be anything, right? We are stressed out, we will be tapping our pen. So these people are like, okay, you are doing a stimming, you are doing a tactile stimming, okay, you are autistic. So people are just seeing like few traits and they are just giving you a huge tag. Like, okay, you are autistic, you are ADHD. So people are not understanding what exactly is neurodivergence. How, like, every day is a struggle for that particular individual, and that sensitization has to be done in corporate sector, where the the organizational psychologist has to make sure that that company is fully aware what are the terms and how to use it for the particular people.
That is so true. I mean, we have a lot more awareness about these right now because more and more people have taken to social media. But at the same time, some of these information are so half-baked that there's so many, like you said, miscommunications or misunderstandings, and people getting labeled when they are not these. And they have to be aware of how this reflects on people who are actually going through this, right? That is very, very difficult, but very good point. So Aparna, we have been talking about employment, but there is something before that, which is education, right? In India, most of the education system is very much heavily exam oriented. Maybe until primary, maybe until middle school, you can do it verbally and get away with it. But come eighth, chop, chop, start writing your exams. Marks are coming. Every month there is exam. So there is a lot of exams, lot of written work, lot of language-based learning. So how can therapists support kids who are dyslexic or even autistic, or how do we help them navigate this rigid system?
Okay, so let me just initially introduce to you. I was thinking that since, we are there in this modern era, we have like so many education systems. It's not only CBSE, it's IGSE, and what many boards we are having in number. So just the other day, I was just having a conversation with a parent, and the parent just told that my kid is having a lot of stress. And guess what? The kid is just there in LKG. And LKG, yes. And what the kid is studying in LKG is digestive system, water cycle. Can you believe that?
My
The
God.
kid, I know. So the kid who has to be there in the ground, running, playing, calming all senses down, enjoying the life, is just sitting with a notebook, finishing the homework. I mean,
I
I could not believe that she just showed me the notebooks where he was having this homework where, the kid has to explain the digestive system. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. I mean, LKG student. So that's how the Indian system is working right now. So no matter how we are saying that we are staying away from the rote learning, we are not that book oriented. We are, digitalized word after pandemic, everything. But trust me, on the grassroots level, everything is just happening on the notebooks. So when it comes to kids who are, kids with autism or with ADHD, or the kids who are having learning disorders, for them, what as a therapist, what I can suggest is you have to always work on their strength based approach. So as we know, we have senses, and through senses, when we are trying to learn something, the grasping power increases. So let me just give you an example. So for example, if a kid is sitting and you are trying to explain an addition to him, and you are just doing on a notebook, kid will not understand what is happening. At the end of the day, kid will do try rote learning and that will be done. But when you are helping the kid with a tactile sensory, where you are using clay, you're using slime, you're using different kind of aids, and you're explaining through the senses, the kid is learning more. So as every person learns through the different type of senses. It can be tactile, it can be auditory, visual. So you can see what is the strength of that particular kid, and you can work slowly on that. And so for if you have named dyslexic, so for them we can focus more on the oral questioning and answer. The responding can be based on that. More of like we can explain them through oral presentation, storytelling, visual aids. That has been beautifully shown. Like it was a very small clip in Tare Zameen Par, but Amir Khan did a very nice job where he was just showing that things. The storytelling method was shown, the visual aids were shown in that. And yeah, nowadays we have technological tools as well. There are a lot of apps, there are a lot of games also, through which these kids can focus on that particular subject.
Yeah, that is true. And
And
one of the things that I recently learned, well, not so recently, but when I was working at an internship place, we were trying to identify learning disabilities in 10th grade students, because 10th graders with learning disabilities, they get special needs. So they can have
Yes.
somebody write the exam for them while they say it out. For certain kind of children, they get additional time depending on the disability level. So there are various things that the government is doing to make sure that they are also included. But what people don't know is you can't test that when it is 10th grade. You need to get them in that special education needs kind of a thing well ahead, maybe in their 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, so that you can give them special attention to how you said, which is sensory learning, different types of learning abilities, so that they actually develop academically, so that when they come into 10th grade, even if they have to orally say the answer to somebody, so while the other person writes, the scribe writes, they at least have learned, so catching this and working on this early is very important, is what I believe.
can
Absolutely.
I, sorry,
Yeah,
Can
go
can
I
I
ahead.
add?
add, sorry, can I add to this issue? So one thing, that the catch that you said, right? It needs to be, it cannot be diagnosed in 10th standard. It needs to be diagnosed before.
Mhm.
But there is another catch here. So I had this one client who had who was falling under the spectrum, but their grade point of the or the on the scale of the spectrum, or on the dyslexia scale, was just one below the criteria to get that scribe. So in these cases, what do we do is a very big question, where it because this is where it gets the our jobs as psychologists gets tricky, because imagine if the criteria is 70, and if they are getting 69 on that scale, what do you do? It means that the child still needs intervention, the child still needs help, but then how do you work around that? 70 and 69 was just an example, but I have seen this happening, and it has happened to one of my clients, and that's when I think it had gotten extremely tricky for me about handling the situation, because when it comes to 10th class, the parents ka anxiety is also very high. It's not only the kids, the parents are anxious, the society is anxious, everyone around them, the extended family is anxious. Then how do we deal with that is another thing that is, it's a fishy, it's difficult to deal with.
Yeah. So you are super on point, Gayatri. Not just the dyslexia or autism scale, but also the IQ scale, because it's the IQ plus the disability together, right? If the IQ is really low, then they go into low IQ category and they get special benefits. If the IQ is high and they fall into the learning disability categories, they get the ability to get scribe or additional recommendations. But there is this narrow part between IQ 70 to IQ 85 that has completely fallen through the cracks. They neither fall under the low IQ category, nor do they fall under the high IQ, but with learning disability category. They can get no benefits. And this is a policy misstep that I have been trying to tell people. We need to change at the policy level, but thank you for bringing that up. I hope we can talk about this, raise awareness, and help these children get the help that they need. So talking about getting help, we have spoken about autism, dyslexia, ADHD. These are some very, very common known things, but there are other neurodivergence conditions like dyspraxia, Tourette's, sensory processing disorder that's not even widely recognized in India. So how can we help children with these conditions? Either one of you. You may
Basically,
be on mute, Aparna.
yeah, sorry. When I was talking about sensory processing disorders over here in Bellari, nobody had an idea of that. And being a sensory therapist, I was like, okay, this is my responsibility to teach, parents about there might be a thin line where, your kids cannot be on spectrum, your kid cannot have ADHD, but the kid is having sensory processing disorder. So usually these kids, there may be few kids who are having, cognition ability. They will be having, they will be socially mingling with everyone. But then when it comes to a very strong light, they are not okay with that. So they will be like, the moment you go to a very bright place or with a very loud noise, they will have like a very severe anxiety, or they will start throwing tantrums. There will be a lot of behavior. And then the parents will be like, ma'am, I think my kid is having autism. So that's where I have to make them sit and explain that, okay, see, your kid is not having autism. We usually do an assessment before, stating that thing. But still, again, we are seeing all these assessments. It is there in front of us. And we just make them, explain this thing that, okay, this is not autism. This is a sensory processing disorder. And when you speak about dyspraxia as well, so there are like a lot of stigma around dyspraxia. And especially parents, they will come to you and they will be like, ma'am, I don't understand. My kid is so well, cognitively doing so well, but I don't understand why my kid is not speaking. I need him to speak. So, if we are trying to work on that particular program, if we are trying to do some kind of little bit like small goals with them, so the parents, okay, they will see my kid is saying few letters. Then they have this ultimate buildup of a huge load of expectation where they're like, okay, now my kid is saying the letters. I want him to speak full sentences. That's what happens in Bellari. So people do not understand, okay, what is dyspraxia? It's going to take a very long time. You have to be like with a lot of patience. You have to sit, you have to teach the kid as well, and you have to follow the procedure which is given by your therapist. So yeah, we are from our side, we are doing a lot of workshops for parents as well. We are making them educate not only about autism, not only about the level of autism, ADHD, but also related to the dyspraxia, the sensory processing, the learning disorders, the Tourette syndrome. So yeah, so we are kind of raising an awareness in Bellari right now. And even we are collaborating with school as well. We have few schools in hands where we go and we educate to teachers as well, because at the end of the day, teachers have a lot of connection with other parents too. And let me just bring this point up, like, I don't know, it is just out of question. This just a sudden thought.
No, go for it. Go for it. It's a conversation, not a question answer
Yeah.
session. Fine.
So, you know, parents of kids who are there on neurodivergent scale, or for that of any mental health disorder for that matter, I mean, they are already struggling with their kids. They are having a lot of anxiety. But I don't understand why the society, I understand the kid part, but why are the whole family is, kept aloof. They do not want to, go and mingle with those parents. If they are trying to, get them to the park for a, just for a mingling program, or, just for having a walk, they are being tagged. Like, okay, you know, that kid parent, do not go near that. Even,
Mm.
I mean, more of the parent, I need people also to be, sensitized that, okay, we are living in a society. You have to be okay with those people. I still see that people, the way they stare at you, the way they give you a look, they are not okay with it. And somehow it is like, it's really sad when I see those things. It's actually really sad. So that's the reason they are trying to find self-help groups. They are finding they need a society, and they are trying to, build it up. So when they are sitting in a clinic, they want someone to speak to. So they will just go to the other parent and they'll be like, okay, can we be friends? And that is really sad. As a society, I think we are failing in that terms. I Gayatri, do you have any point to speak on this? Because she is the one who takes the adult therapy. So that is much more sadder.
So I think what, based on what Aparna said, I agree with it, but it's not only about the society. I think it's also, if I, like, if you have to look at it from an empathetic eye, it's also a lot of, you know, when it comes to parents, first of all, they are tired of it. They are finding it difficult to understand themselves, what is happening with the child, what is not happening. It doesn't matter if you're in tier 1 city or tier 2 city. It's just there, because at the end of the day, if I am looking at my clients, I understand, neurodiversity and neurodivergence in a very different scale and different perspective. But I understand that, understanding it for your own child, it becomes a little, tricky. It becomes a little difficult. After that comes the extended family. Again, irrespective of being in tier 1 city or tier 2 city, when you're around extended family, there is a lot of taboo. There is a lot of, restrictions on the child. Ki, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why is your child, jumping up and down? Why is your child throwing plates? Why are they, smashing the spoons on the floor? And even though we understand that is sensory, and the parent might also understand that, however, when it comes to, explaining it to the extended family, it becomes much more exhausting on for the caregiver as well. And then I think third thing comes to, yes, the even understanding, making these things understand to the schools and teachers, because at the end of the day, this is our job, right? This is our job as therapists to understand these things and treat each, individual and child uniquely. But for teachers, they are not trained with that sensitivity. They are not trained with those methods. And if you think about it, even when they are in school and when they are in class and they have like 40 kids to handle, and they have other pressures of their job, how much will they be able to, focus on the kids? So, which is where the whole idea of having a special educator, or having a well trained special educator, having well trained shadow teachers come into the play. So, when it comes to educating, there it's not only the parent and the caregiver that we are trying to educate. It's the whole society, which does take a lot of time, effort, and multitudes and multifolds of patience from the therapist. But at the end of the day, it is a step which is a huge part of our life and our careers, right? So when it comes to, we have to, I think for me, it always comes down to just understanding the exhaustion of the caregiver, because even if the extended family is helping them out, let's say a child and the parents are staying in a nuclear family, but the child gets diagnosed, the extended family, usually one, the maternal parents or paternal grandparents, come in to help the parents. They would be understanding. The grandparents are trying their best, or, uncles, aunts are trying their best, but they don't understand it. And at the end of the day, taking care of a child who is on the autism spectrum, it can get challenging. It can burn the parents and the caregivers out. So when it comes to sensitization, it's not only just, the parents, it's also the extended family, and it goes around, and it's like, it's a long list. You start with one, and then you're like, once start working at grassroots level, if you handle one situation, second one arises, third one arises, and you're like, oh, okay, this needs the attention, this needs attention, this needs attention, and then it goes on. So, it's a webinars like this is a very good way. But then again, it has access to very few people. The parents don't usually have time to sit. Imagine your child has ADHD and is on the autism spectrum. They will not be able to sit down for an online workshop for, let's say, an hour. That is, for what's an hour for us is 60 minutes for them. And focusing here or looking at the child, how do they manage? So, when it comes to, bless you. So when it comes to this, it becomes a very tricky thing. So once you start, I think, if, we have any, whoever is watching and whoever is there in the audience, what we would, say from the bottom of our heart is, if you're even a little bit interested in this, I know it's uncomfortable to come to a tier 2 city and live here and, work at a grassroots level, but this is the need. If you come here, you will understand, and you will have so much more to learn, and you will have that ground reality. So this is just an ode. If, anyone is interested, please just do it. Don't wait for it. Just pack your bags and move. I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but trust me, eventually it's going to be worth it. You're making a change, you're making a difference.
Yeah. So in urban cities, there is special needs schools. There is more, awareness, and there is a little bit more awareness towards inclusivity. But in tier 2, tier 3 rural areas, there are no special needs schools. There are no special educators, and it is left up to people who are like Aparna and Gayatri. You have made the decision to move to a tier 3 city just for this. So that needs a big applause. So thank you so much for doing this, and thank you so much for talking about this. I'm going to switch over to questions from the audience right now. So they are thanking that this was such a very insightful session, and I learned a lot, quite relatable, as their sister is diagnosed with ADHD and faces challenges in their workplace. So can you tell us a few of the tips that can be incorporated in their daily life to improve concentration, hyperactivity of adults with ADHD? And can ADHD lead to ASD?
Can I go ahead? Yeah, sure. Okay. So, Popil, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Gopal. So the response from my side will be the very first question. ADHD will never lead to ASD. Okay. So ADHD is a different disorder, and ASD is a different disorder. There can be a comorbidity. When we speak about a comorbidity, it's basically the few traits of ADHD can come to ASD, but it will never lead to ASD.
Okay, so
Now,
sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
okay.
But if a person who has ADHD, are there chances like they can get the traits of ASD?
Okay, so here, what are we talking about in traits?
in traits, basically in ASD, we usually see like lack of social contact, or a person does not make that eye contact. So will that ADHD traits can lead to these traits of ASD?
No, it's not. It's ADHD will never lead to ASD. There can be, you can say it like there can be a comorbidity. The person will be having the autism with ADHD. So coming to the second question which you have asked, like there are few challenges your sister is facing in the workplace. So a very simple tip which I can suggest from my side is she can work in a task analysis form. So in behavior therapy, what we do is whenever we are trying to do any work, we will, cut down into small steps. And then we kind of create a checklist. So for example, if I just want to give you a very simple example, imagine I'm going to do a hand wash. So what I will do, I'll open a tap, I'll, wet my hands, take a hand soap, then I'm gonna, put it all over my hands for 5 times, and then I'm gonna rinse my hand. So these are the steps I have broken down into. And once I'm completing those steps, I'm just putting a tick mark so that, when we are doing a lot of work it can be anything, it can be a daily chore, it can be the office work, we can create a small checklist where we are not feeling, burdened with those work at a single time, and we are easily, doing a time management. So that can be one tip which can be helpful for your sister.
Yeah, that was a really nice tip. But like sometimes you might see like you have a lot of things on your plate, and it is very difficult for you to manage everything. You will jump from one task to another. It is seen in ADHD people a lot. So what can we do to manage that?
Again, so you can prioritize your list. What is the most important work which you have to finish it? Just write it. Once you complete that, put a tick mark. So make a priority list, starting from what is most important to the least important. And that's how you can do, basically declutter your whole daily activity.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
Another thing that is a very good idea is taking consistent breaks. So ADHD can affects in ends up with a lot of overstimulation, because first of all you're already in under burden of meeting goals, meeting targets. So it's better if you also take a lot of breaks. You find ways and exercises to regulate, yourself. You can, suggest that for your sister. I think Aparna will be better in telling you what exercises she can do sitting at her desk to, just, give herself. I think one of the beautiful thing that I really like is self-hugging, which is basically you just like tightly just hug yourself. It calms your senses because it gives a lot of pressure to you. So yeah, visual checklists are good. uh, Breaks, again, another thing is reward systems. If something if your sister likes, let's say, a chocolate, she can reward herself with a small piece of chocolate after every work. So that kind of gives her a break, that gives her a little bit of reinforcement, and it's a nice way to celebrate your small achievements in everyday life.
Thank you, Gayatri. These tips were really helpful for me.
Thank you, Kopal. Thanks for asking this. And there are also ADHD planners that are available, which gives you that structure so that you can do it on a daily basis, or you can do it on an hourly basis, depending on how granular you want it. And it may work for ADHD as well, but it certainly works for me is Pomodoro. I keep a 25-minute timer and then take 5-minute break, 25-minute timer, 5-minute break. And I like to play music behind when I'm working. So that really helps. So try a different set of techniques, see what works, and then you don't have to be wedded to one. You can just keep trying different ones. So hope that helped.
Thank you, Veda, for
So there are other questions as well. I'm going to move on to that. I'm practicing, I mean, the person who was asking the question is practicing movement therapy. And what do you think they should be doing in terms of modifications of movement for neurodivergent clients?
So I think first thing is, again, sensory and senses, where, you can take up a lot of, activities and movements where, you are just giving a lot of compressions that are putting compressions on their body. So like, for example, jumping is a very good way of regulating and calming your senses, plus like giving it gives a lot of pressure on your, ankles and toes. That is something that can be helpful. Another thing is as simple as clapping. When you're clapping, your mind is not only coming into the now, but it's also giving a lot of pressure on your, arms if you just do this. So that is another easy way. Apart from that, I think over to Aparna because she is sensory.
Um, Vrinda, you had asked even for the grounding techniques for the same thing. So, whenever we are talking about sensory, whatever activity you are doing in which your all senses are coming down and you're focusing in a particular activity, that activity can be included in sensory, movement therapies or in anything. Take a very simple example of uh a shaving foam. Put it in a plate and just just submerge your hands in it. The type of feeling which you get, a really cold sensation, the slimy part, and you get all dirty all over. And so your senses are included in that. The tactile senses, you are looking at it, you are smelling the foam, your all senses are being focused on that particular activity. So these type of activities you can do. And then Gayatri has mentioned the massages. You can do a lot of proprioceptive workouts, the heavy workouts you can do. You can do wall push-ups, you can do twisting, turning with your body, and you can actually include music in that. It's gonna create a different vibe, I can say. So when it is with the music, the calming music, it will be much more helpful. I think Vrinda is raising her hand.
Yeah, hi Aparna, hi Gayatri. So, firstly, thank you so much for bringing this out because I am somebody who is exploring the space of neurodivergent and children as well, especially. So, do you think something like working with props, maybe like a dupatta or ribbons, something where they can clunch it on, like even those stress balls that you get, the smiley balls that you get, are they certain ways where we can inculcate more of behavioral and physical, identifications that we can see while observing them? So is that a good way to sort of come into the picture?
Yeah, so Vrinda, I agree with that. The ribbons, if the kid likes
Mm-hmm.
visual stimuli, they will be, enjoying those ribbons. When it comes to you can also take bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
Kids love bubbles, even adults. Trust me, even adults love bubbles. They just deny it that they do not like it, but they love it. When it is popping out in front of their face, they just love it. So you can take a lot of bubbles of different sizes, of different colors. They just love that. And you can include sand in your therapy. Kids
Oh,
just love sand. You can take slime, you can take clay, you can take lot of materials where the kids can experience different sensory things. They will just love it.
right.
Just one
Yeah, go ahead, Gayatri. It's okay. Go ahead.
just one thing about the whole thing is that when you're introducing any kind of props, just be very careful that they are not, if you're working with a child, just make sure that they're not putting it in their mouth, because mouthing is a very common thing. So if you just see that, just make sure if you're using a sand, slime, clay, anything, just make sure it is child safe. So you will get that option on Amazon. So just a thing of caution.
Right. Just one more additional question, because I feel like we do a lot of these visualization techniques as well when we're doing movement therapy. It need not always be to kind of be associated with physical movement, but it's something that taps into their cognitive and emotional sensibilities as well. So I'm really fearful in order to work with that front, because I feel like they will just sort of, it can reignite a lot of trauma for them as well. So, do you advise something other than a visualization to sort of work with such children and adults, if I may say, and if I may ask, though?
So visualization with kids on the autism spectrum or ADHD becomes a little difficult.
Hmm.
So I think visualization with people on the spectrum would be more beneficial when you're working with either teenagers or adults. But yeah, so visualization techniques, apart from that, I think there are other techniques to tap into your this as well. It's a literal tapping technique which works with it. Please do look it up after the session. If you have any doubts, you can reach out to us and I can share, we can share more better resources with you there.
Got it. All right. Yeah.
You can share these resources after the session, and I will send it over to all the participants who registered and who joined for the session or did not join for the session as well, and as extra resources for them. I'm going to jump straight on to another question, and I think this is something that I was also very curious about. As a mental health professional, I'm curious, what are some ways we can create more inclusive spaces for neurodivergent individuals in therapeutic settings? So in the spaces where you conduct therapy, what are some inclusive ways where you can make the space more attractive for them?
Okay. Okay. So first thing is when you're setting up a therapy space, make sure it's a comfortable therapy space. I know this is like page one of therapy ka handout manual, but it becomes even more important when you're working with neurodiverse population, because first of all, if you're having a couch, it doesn't need to be too soft, it doesn't need to be too hard, it needs to be just right. Apart from that, the colors of your room, the lighting of your room should be adjustable. I know colors are not adjustable of the wall, but at least you can keep the lighting, which can be dimmed or brightened based on how your client is feeling that day. Apart from that, I think it's very important for us to have other seating options as well. If your child is not, if your client is, I'm sorry, if your client is not feeling comfortable sitting on the sofa that day or wants to lie down, they should just have that option of sitting on the floor or lie down on the couch or lie down on the floor or sit in a very weird way that they want. Because at the end of the day, therapy space is, theirs to claim. It is the space that we hold for the client. Apart from that, I think it's very important for us to have a lot of flexible approaches. So it doesn't if so let's say if you're dealing with an adult client, and if the client just cannot come into the office for a particular day, you can have other options as okay, fine, would you want to have an online call or like just a video call or like a call or audio call, whatever is working for you and the client that day. Apart from that, there are times when I have found that my hyper verbal clients don't feel like talking in the session for 50 minutes. So in those cases, I do ask them to, like, if I'm doing an online setup, in an online setup or in my office as well, I would keep a few blank pages, a few crayons, a few things to write down, a few things to doodle. Therapy doesn't always need to be conversational. It can also be where you're just sitting silently and doodling, because at the end of the day, again, the space is theirs to claim. When it comes to, even when they're writing and when they're doodling something or when they're drawing something, you can all, as a therapist, you can always check upon, okay, fine, it's been 15 minutes, it's been 20 minutes, let's see what you have done, and then you can ask them questions about that. So there are different ways and there are different approaches to go around it. because when it comes to neurodiverse population, uh, it's important to be prepared for almost everything, and apart from that, yeah, if apart from that, I think as a one thing that helps me to when I'm working with adults, especially adults, is and even the kids, is that after a session I like to sit down and reflect about, how what did the session look like, how can, what were the triggers, can I modify this. So usually after each session, me and Aparna have a 15-minute of discussion about each one of our cases, and where we just tell that okay, fine, this is what happened in the session, this is how my client reacted, and this is what I'm planning to do tomorrow because this is what didn't work. Do you have any suggestions? Do you have any ideas? And that's how we work. But I understand if you don't have a psychotherapist or psychologist who you can do it with, but it's always good to sit with a pen and a paper and just to reflect on it. You can send a voice note to yourself, you can send a WhatsApp text to yourself, just sit and reflect. I think these are a few tips that we carry in our practice every day.
And if I want to add on that, there's a very basic thing which everyone knows, but I know it's hard to follow. It's the continuous education and the updation, because every day there is something new which is happening. And when you are there in a therapy place, you just want your client to be, happy, and they should be there with their emotions. And you are trying so many new methods when you are updating your skills based on, it can be sensory, it can be through behavior therapy, it can be through many things. But when you are updating your skills, you will be like, okay, let me just try. I have learned this thing in conference, I have learned this thing in workshop, and I'm just including all these skills. So it is actually really beneficial when we are doing updation and skill. That is from my side.
Thank you so much. This was truly very helpful. I think especially what Gayatri said about this space is theirs to claim, right? That is, I think that's so true and that's so profound, right? And especially the reflection post session as well. I'm definitely going to be including that in my, I think all of our sessions could benefit from that, to be honest, but also being more mindful about the triggers and maybe the ways through which we can modify our sessions to better accommodate our clients. I think that's great. And yes, definitely, I think educating ourselves continuously is something that's very, very important. And as you said, even the clients, of course, it's the clients at the end of the day that that are the most important aspect of it, and anything that can help them and that can benefit them is amazing, right? And with regards to this continuing education, I think if I'm sure you have a lot of work, and you do not have much time on your hands, but if you could maybe direct us to some resources, reliable resources, maybe online or courses, that would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think after the session,
Mhm.
sometime by tomorrow, we will definitely share it with Veda, and then she can, like she said, she can forward it to you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gayatri and Aparna.
Welcome.
Brinda, you have your hand up.
Yeah, actually, this question is not to do with anything in terms of what you do per se, but in terms of assessment. I see that you spoke about assessment also, right? And I also see, and I've read about this fact that neurodivergents get really distracted when you are assessing them midst the session, right? So, just as a handout, or maybe like a few tips on us as practitioners as to how we can assess these children and adults in middle of the session, and what are your maybe tools or hacks that you use as a way to sort of do their assessment would be great. I mean, because I'm just starting out, it would always be helpful to know from professionals like you as well.
So I think the first tip is to not focus on assessments on day one. So what we usually do is we first build a little bit of bond, spend a little bit of time with the clients, irrespective of the age of the client. They can be a child, they can be an adult, because when if they are comfortable, they will be. You will be. It gets easier for you to assess it. So I think that's one hack that we follow. Second thing that we follow, we don't complete an entire set of assessments. So like let's say there are like 100 questions or 50 questions. We don't cover them up in one sitting. What we usually do is we have 2 to 3 days worth of assessments where we are, if it's a child case, where we start with just introducing different toys, seeing how they are, interacting with the toys. Then second day we probably start with like basic programs, like if they are able to recognize items in their environment, or if they are looking at us when, or if they are responding to their names. We start off from as basic as that, and then slowly build it up to a bigger thing. So when it comes to assessments, even for adults, we do the same thing, where imagine you're coming with a autism or ADHD query, and you're handing them ESA, and then you're like, oh fine, sit and fill this up. It's a long, it becomes difficult for them to understand, read. They have a lot of questions, and if the query is of autism or ADHD, it's difficult for them to focus so much. So it's better to for you to give it to them in a few breaks. Always, if the client is free and if your schedule is free, you can set out an entire day just for them. Or it's better you continue assessments in over 3 to 4 sessions. And so what we usually do is we just have one specific charge for assessment, so that how many ever days it takes, the client does not have that anxiety of, oh my god, so many sessions have passed, I'm paying per session. They are just dragging out the time just so that they get paid extra or paid more. So this is like one thing that we follow a lot. Aparna, anything?
Yeah, in addition to that, what we do is in a very initial stage, we will take a lot of information from a caregiver and from parents, that what are the trigger spot for that particular. So I'm more of child oriented, so I'm going to speak on that behalf, that we collect a lot of data from parents, that okay, what are your kids trigger spots. So for example, some kids, they do not like the sounds, or they do not like a very intense light, so we do not introduce those type of aids near to them. We want to make them as comfortable as possible, so we take a lot of data from the caregivers first, and then we will ask them also for what are the kind of things they like to do, what are the types of reinforcement they like to have, because every kid is different. Some kids will like more of a edible reinforcement, so we do not our focus will not be on those other type of toys. We will be just focusing on, okay, the chips, the lollies, the chocolates. So those will be our the armors to work with the kid. And trust me, if you know their triggers and if you know what are their interests is, your assessment will be a piece of cake for you.
Yeah, and when it comes to adults, since these are not the things, like, these are the things that work very well with kids. But when it comes to adults, yes, you can still take in a little bit of information from, let's say if your client is an adult, they are staying with their roommates, you can always take in information from them. You can take in information from their partners. Basically, try to involve and understand them in every different setup as much as possible. If someone is, so let's say, like a few companies in India do send out their employees for assessments. So if that is the case, you can talk to the HR, you can talk to the team leads, ki, why have you suggested this for this particular person? Has there been any difficulties? Has there been any, issues here? Is it something that is stopping them? Is it the deliverables? And then from there you can take up the assessments and understand how you plan, you can plan your next steps a little better.
Got it. Got it. Lastly, the one last question in terms of ethics, like I feel like there is a lot where we disregard certain ethics to sort of work with them. So, what are your key ethics that you find out in terms of even technology based therapy? Like you spoke about the fact that tech is not usually the ideal way to look at such audiences, but in case if we are doing, say, an online therapy session with such populations, what are the ethical considerations that one can take over, in order to sort of take a session fluently and at the same time be much aware and considerate of the fact of light and sound and all of those little nuances that we've just spoken about today? That's one common question I wanted to ask. I know it's very basic, but still very important that most people don't really take focus on when they're taking sessions as well.
So when it comes to child therapy, I think with child therapy it does become tele counseling, or online sessions become a little tricky because their caregivers have to sit with them. We have done that during COVID, and trust me, it was chaotic for us, for the kids, and for the parents. But when it does come to adult population, I think child, since that is Aparna's department, she can speak about it much more comfortably. But when it comes to adults, I think uh, unfortunately there is not much that you can control. At max, what you can control, since it's online, right? They are sitting in their own environment. But at during these times, if my client has called me and has said that, hey Gayatri, I'm not able to make it because I don't feel like traveling, this is getting too much for me. So on those days, what I usually start the session or end the session based on how my client is feeling that day is a grounding technique. Because if grounding techniques work a lot with the population, because they are already very overstimulated in a lot of different areas and aspects. So how I work with it is, a lot of grounding techniques. There are times when I have just asked my client to stand up from the chair and jump for 20 times in front of me, just so that they can feel better. I have included techniques like just screaming. uh, you know you just have to remember to remove your earphones. But apart from that, it's something. So like I said, right, when it comes to adults, or any kind of just neurodiverse population, you have to be extremely you know flexible. Like there will be times when your client is demanding something from you that might make you personally uncomfortable. Like, but again, being comfortably uncomfortable is really good for you. So like I said, just when I go in these kind of, if I'm taking a session for a neurodiverse client, I usually go with the mindset anything can happen, but at the end of my 50 minutes, the client should feel at least 0.5, you know, like on the scale of 10 better. If that is the case, I think that okay, fine. It has helped. The session has been helpful. I think for child, Aparna will be.
So yeah, I agree with Gayatri, but when it comes to, thinking of it in terms of a child therapy, it's really hard to make a boundary, and it's really hard to follow ethics. I can just give you a very simple example that kid has birthdays, okay? And they will come to you. They'll be like, ma'am, today is my birthday. Please have this cake. Ma'am, I bought a chocolate for you. And it's so hard for you to deny it on their face. I'm like, oh my God, how can I say no to that face? They are like so small and they're like, ma'am, I got this for you. And following the ethics over there just breaks your heart. It'll be like, how to deny that? And I remember doing the online therapy for kids. So when it comes to child therapy, yes, it is very difficult. But when they are sitting in front of the screen, all you can do is you have to be like very expressive through your face. So it'll be like you're moving your eyebrows, dilating your pupils, always running, continuous smile on your face. So yeah, so those things are there in therapy. And when it comes to ethics with child therapy, my point will be that it's really, really hard to maintain that. It's really hard to say no to them, as simple as that.
Right,
As
that's
long as
exactly.
you have the parents' approval and you have gotten their consent that it's going to be difficult, I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to be following this, as long as you have
Yeah,
run
we make them
up
sensitized.
caregivers.
We make them sensitized. Like it's you know we are okay with this, and we take the permission from them. We just inform them, and sometimes we deny them that it's, see, these are the things we have to maintain our boundary as a therapist and a you, client. Try to understand those things. But yeah, that is my emotion, that I feel like so hard to say that no to them. It's like such a pretty space. Just imagine this very small, cute kid is coming with a plate of cake to you and like, ma'am, today is my birthday. And you cannot say no to that piece, but then you have to call the caregiver and you have to just make them understand of the situation. Like, it's okay. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, that's how it works in a child therapy space.
So I have to say no right now because I feel like you have all been such good audience and you have asked such good question. And I feel really bad saying no to you because we have run well past that time. But Gayatri, Aparna, it's a kudos to you. We have never had this engaged audience. We have questions. We usually have those questions in chat, but people coming and talking and engaging at this level. Yes, the topic is important, but you both gave such good information, which motivated them to open up and ask more questions. Amazing. And can I just say, you doing this very, very wonderful job in a tier 2 city for children and adults over there. I wish I could promote this more and more so more people do this. I will try my level best. Thank you so much for being here, sharing all the information. And audience, hats off. You did this session proud. You went all in. You knew what you wanted to learn and you got it there. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for having us as well. It was a pleasure, and it's every opportunity to promote neurodiversity is like thank you so much for giving it to us. We are really grateful.
Yeah, that's what. Thank you so much. And guys, you are most welcome to come to Bellari. We are welcoming you over here. I know you guys will be working in a different fields, having very limited amount of time. But yeah, if you find a little bit amount of time, if you want to, go to Hampi, just I think it's just 20 to 30 minutes distance. That's it. You guys are most welcome in Bellari. And thank you so much, Veda, for giving us the platform to speak about neurodiversity. It means a lot.
No, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. So have a good evening, everyone.